Thank you very much, Sue. I'm a co-director of the Herb Institute. I want to thank everybody in this audience for participating in this survey. Not everybody participated, and I know who did not. And I also want to thank Krista Gullo for doing all of the statistical analysis and so on. We replicated some of the same questions that we administered last year. So first of all, remember that on this question, you could tick multiple boxes. We actually had one person who ticked 7 categories. They're an environmentalist, an NGO, a student, a writer, and so on, all at the same time. So it doesn't add up to 100%, but you can see a massive increase in percentage terms, a lot more involvement of business and entrepreneurs and NGOs in particular, and academics are up, but I think it's just because academics like to fill out questionnaires. And more people this year, twice as many, call themselves an environmentalist. We're still lower than we should be on the roles of government, media, labor, venture capitalist, and so on. Why are you here? The results in terms of the rank order for this year and last year are surprisingly close to each other. We're largely here for learning about new mobility practice and research and connecting with collaborators. So those are the important ones, but it looks like this crowd is much like last year's crowd. Well, in fact, we saw that half of this group was last year. So it means you're filling out the questionnaire in the same way each year, which is appreciated. What is driving the call for sustainable accessibility and mobility? As we emphasized last night, climate change is the motherlode challenge of our time. That was true last year. It's even more important for the 2009 column this year. Energy insecurity, peak oil is very important to us. Both inequity in access and the aging infrastructure both increased a bit, almost a statistically significant thing. Perhaps the global financial economic crisis targeted our emphasis on the inequity, and maybe the report of the American Society of Civil Engineers giving America's infrastructure a D- might have boosted that. But so it's a complex mix of things, but the emphases this year are fairly similar to last year. And we better be talking about climate, energy insecurity, social justice, and infrastructure and pollution over time. I don't think we are paying enough attention to aging of the population, because we're going to get about 10% of the world is currently over the age 60, but within 15 years, that'll be 20%. So we need mobility and accessibility systems for old people like me. And so I want my students out in the audience to get creative about moving me around or not moving me around in 15 years' time if I'm still here. Of course, these are all interconnected, and if you do the Pearson product moment correlations and so on, you get some very strong correlations, especially among the social challenges that we are trying to deal with. If you look over on the right-hand side of this, extraordinarily high correlations in that whole gestalt of the social challenges. And I would just propose a hypothesis that I think we know what we're supposed to do about pollution and greenhouse gas emissions and terrorism, the stuff on the left side. I think it's the social challenges that we have yet to really unravel. And it's so easy to get fixated just on a natural environment challenge when really, if we go back to our trends last night, if we're trying to build accessibility systems for 2 to 3 billion people living in the slums of rapidly growing developing countries, we better understand what it means to deal with the social dimensions there. And finally, here are your organizing principles. So, very dramatically, 5 means extremely important. The top 7 design principles or organizing principles that you would use if you were giving a speech about this topic are accessibility, dramatized by Jonathan last night, renewable energy, eco-friendliness, connectivity, time and space efficiency, affordability, and social justice. And you can see the rest of them. It's not that the rest are not all that important. Everything appears to be important to this crowd. But the great challenge of our time is, even if you were asked by a professor, design a system that meets all of the top 7 principles. And so I leave that challenge for you in this conference. I will be showing you a wealth of data in other sessions. We just had a little bit of a hint that Mayor John scored very highly from the Ann Arbor folks, but the other mayors in your towns didn't do so well. You will see data tonight that the mayors or city managers of this world are largely still neutral about all of this. So we have to understand what that means. In the absence of leadership in government, where are we going to go? I'm going to turn it back to Sue.